I never thought I would find myself in this situation. But here I was, standing at the threshold of a forbidden secret, my pulse hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. It started with a mistake, one that changed everything. The night was quiet, the kind of stillness that made every creak of the floorboards sound deafening. I had just returned from a night out, my body warm from the alcohol, buzzing in my veins. The house was dark, everyone seemingly asleep. Or so I thought. I walked past the hallway, heading toward my room, when I realized I'd left my phone downstairs. Annoyed, I turned back, my feet silent against the cold floor. But as I passed by one of the rooms, I noticed something unusual. The door wasn't completely shut. A sliver of golden light spilled through the gap, and from within, the unmistakable sounds of pleasure echoed softly. I should have walked away. I should have ignored it. But curiosity, dangerous, reckless curiosity, rooted me to the spot. Without thinking, I nudged the door open just a fraction, my breath catching in my throat at the sight before me. She was there, Elaine, my sister-in-law, the perfect wife, the woman I had admired for years, with her poised elegance, her sharp wit, the way she carried herself as if she belonged to a world far above the rest of us. She was the epitome of grace, the kind of woman every man secretly desired but never dared to touch. But now, she was something else entirely. She was undone. Her head was tilted back, dark waves cascading over her shoulders, her lips parted in a breathless moan. Her body, so often hidden beneath layers of sophistication, was now exposed in all its sinful beauty. Her skin glowed under the dim light, a sheen of sweat tracing the curves of her form. And the man between her thighs was not my brother. It was my father. A shock wave slammed through me, my mind struggling to comprehend what I was seeing. My stomach twisted, a sickening mix of horror and something else I didn't dare name. My father, always the composed, powerful patriarch, was on his knees before her, his hands gripping her hips with a possessiveness that made my blood run cold. And Elaine, she wasn't ashamed. She wasn't afraid. She was reveling in it. I must have made a sound, a sharp inhale, a shift of my weight, because suddenly she turned. Her gaze found mine through the cracked door, and instead of panic or shame, a slow, knowing smile curved her lips. I froze. Her fingers trailed down my father's shoulder before she gently pushed him away, rising from the bed with the grace of a queen. My father, dazed and unaware of my presence, let out a low chuckle before lying back against the pillows. Elaine, on the other hand, had her sights set on me. The moment she reached the door, I should have run. I should have turned and pretended I had never seen anything. But I didn't. She opened the door wider, stepping into the dimly lit hallway, her body mere inches from mine. The scent of her, vanilla and something darker, more intoxicating, invaded my senses. Her voice was soft, almost playful. "Did you enjoy the show, Nathan?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I didn't mean to. She tilted her head, studying me like a predator amused by its prey. "But you did." Her fingers ghosted over my wrist, the touch feather-light but searing. "You stayed." I wanted to deny it. I wanted to be disgusted, to push her away, to erase what I had seen from my mind. But my body betrayed me. She noticed. Of course she did. Her smile deepened, a slow, wicked thing. "Poor boy. You don't know what to do with yourself, do you?" I clenched my fists, forcing myself to step back. "This is wrong." Her laugh was soft, taunting. "Then why are you still here?" I opened my mouth to answer, to say something, anything that would break the spell she was weaving around me. But before I could, she moved. One step, two, and suddenly, her fingers trailed down my chest, stopping just at the waistband of my pants. "Would you rather be part of it?" I sucked in a sharp breath. "This is insane." She pulled back just enough to look into my eyes, her expression unreadable. "You think I don't know?" Her nails grazed my skin, sending an involuntary shiver down my spine. "I see the way you look at me, Nathan." I shook my head, but the denial felt weak. She leaned in, her lips just a whisper away from mine. "You don't have to fight it." My mind screamed at me to stop this, to push her away, to remind myself who she was. But when she finally kissed me, soft at first, then deeper, darker, every ounce of reason shattered. Her kiss was a fire I couldn't put out. It started slow, teasing, a mere brush of lips that sent a violent shiver down my spine. Then she deepened it, her fingers tangling in my hair, her body pressing into mine with an urgency that made it impossible to think. I should have stopped her. I should have pushed her away. But I didn't. Instead, my hands found her waist, gripping the soft silk of her robe as she molded against me. The heat of her skin burned through the thin fabric, searing into me, branding me in a way that no amount of regret could ever erase. Elaine pulled back slightly, her breath warm against my lips. Her eyes, dark and full of something dangerously close to satisfaction, roamed my face. "See," she whispered, her nails grazing down my chest. "I knew you wouldn't resist." I swallowed hard, my heart hammering against my ribs. "This is wrong," she smirked, dragging a finger along my jawline. "Then why do you want more?" I had no answer, because she was right. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to run, to get away from her, from this intoxicating madness. But my body refused to obey. It stayed, drawn to her like a moth to a flame, despite knowing I would burn. She took my silence as permission. Her hand slid lower, fingers slipping beneath the hem of my shirt, nails raking lightly over my stomach. My breath hitched. She felt it, her smirk widening as she pressed closer. "I wonder," she mused, her voice a sultry purr. "Have you ever touched a woman like this before?" I clenched my jaw. "Elaine." She hushed me with a slow, deliberate roll of her hips, her body fitting perfectly against mine. My self-control frayed, the last threads of restraint slipping through my fingers like sand. And then, a sound, a soft rustling from the bedroom. My father. Reality crashed over me like a cold wave, dousing the fire in my veins. I stepped back abruptly, my breath ragged. "We can't do this." Elaine watched me, her expression unreadable. Then, with a slow, measured movement, she fixed her robe, tightening the silk around her waist. "Shame," she murmured, tilting her head. "I thought you had more nerve than that." Anger flared in my chest. "Is this a game to you?" She laughed softly. "Oh, Nathan." She reached out, trailing a finger down my arm before stepping past me, her lips brushing my ear as she whispered, "You have no idea what game you've just stepped into." And with that, she disappeared down the hall, leaving me standing there, shaken and breathless. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, saw the way she looked at me, the way she touched me, the way she moaned under my father's hands. Disgust and desire warred inside me, tangled so tightly that I couldn't separate one from the other. By morning, I had convinced myself it was over, that I would forget, that I would pretend nothing had happened. But then she proved me wrong. At breakfast, she was the perfect wife again, elegant, composed, smiling at my brother with the same soft affection she had always shown. No one, not my father, not my brother, had any idea what had transpired between us the night before, except me and Elaine. She caught my eye from across the table, her lips curling in the barest hint of a smirk as she brought her coffee to her lips. It was a warning, a promise, and I knew, deep in my bones, that this was far from over. The days that followed were torture. Elaine was everywhere. At the breakfast table, sitting across from me, her lips curling around the rim of her coffee cup, eyes dark with something only I could recognize. In the living room, where she would stretch lazily on the couch, her robe slipping just enough to reveal the soft skin of her thighs. At dinner, where she would laugh at my brother's jokes, her hand resting delicately on his arm, while her foot, hidden beneath the table, found mine and pressed against it, just enough to make my breath hitch. She was playing with me, toying with the knowledge that she had seen my desire, that I hadn't pushed her away fast enough, that my body had betrayed me in the hallway that night. And I hated her for it, but I hated myself more, because no matter how hard I tried to ignore her, no matter how much I told myself this was wrong, my body still reacted. My blood still burned when she was near. My mind still replayed the feeling of her hands on me, the warmth of her breath against my skin. I started avoiding her, leaving the house early, coming home late, anything to keep from being alone with her. But Elaine was patient. She waited, and when she finally caught me, I had no escape. It happened one evening when I thought I was safe. I had spent the entire day out drowning myself in anything that would keep me distracted: work, errands, meaningless conversations with strangers at a cafe. By the time I returned home, the house was quiet. My brother was still at work. My father had left for a business trip. I exhaled, relieved. Finally, a moment of peace. But as I climbed the stairs, something felt wrong. A presence. I turned, just in time to see her step out from the shadows of the hallway. Elaine. She wasn't wearing one of her usual elegant dresses. Instead, she was in a silk nightgown, the kind that clung to every curve, the fabric so sheer that it left nothing to the imagination. I stiffened. What do you want? She took a slow step toward me, then another, her bare feet making no sound against the wooden floor. You've been avoiding me. I clenched my fists, because this, whatever this is, needs to stop. She hummed, tilting her head. And yet, you haven't told anyone. I swallowed hard. She was right. If I truly wanted this to end, I could have exposed her that first night. Told my brother. Told my father. But I hadn't, because deep down, a part of me was still caught in her web. Elaine stopped just in front of me, so close that the scent of her perfume wrapped around me like a vice. Tell me, Nathan, she murmured, tracing a single finger down my chest. Is it fear that keeps you silent? Her lips curled. Or is it something else? I exhaled sharply, stepping back, but she followed. This is a game to you, isn't it? I ground out, my voice hoarse. You enjoy watching me suffer. She smiled. Oh, darling, you have no idea how much. And then she closed the distance between us. Her hand slid up my chest, her nails scraping lightly against my skin. My breath hitched, my muscles tensing. I could still walk away. I should have walked away, but I didn't. Her lips brushed against my jaw, her voice a whisper. You think you hate me. Her teeth grazed my ear, sending a shudder through me. But what if I told you you hate yourself more? I clenched my jaw, my restraint hanging by a thread. She pressed closer, her body molding against mine. You want to know the truth, Nathan? She pulled back just enough to meet my gaze, her eyes dark and knowing. I swallowed. What? Her smirk deepened. You were never meant to be a spectator. I couldn't breathe. Elaine's words wrapped around me, tightening like a noose. You were never meant to be a spectator. The way she said it, so calm, so certain, as if this had been planned long before I even stepped into that hallway that night. My fists clenched at my sides, nails digging into my palms. What the hell does that mean? She only smiled, slow and knowing, as if I had already answered my own question. Her fingers traced down my chest, her touch feather-light. But the effect was devastating. I jerked away as if burned, my breath ragged. Stop! I hissed, but lacked conviction. Elaine laughed softly. Oh, Nathan, she mused, tilting her head. You still don't understand, do you? She took a step closer, closing the distance I had just created. You think this is about you and me? Her nails raked lightly along my arm. That I chose you on a whim? I stiffened. There was something about the way she said it, something that sent a chill through me despite the heat of her body, so close to mine. I don't play games without a purpose, she continued, her voice a velvety purr. And neither does she. My heart stopped. She? Elaine's smile widened. Oh, darling, did you really think I was the mastermind behind all of this? She leaned in, her breath warm against my ear. You were always meant to fall, Nathan. You just didn't know who was pushing you. A sharp knock echoed down the hall. I turned instinctively, my pulse pounding, but Elaine didn't move. She only watched, an amusement dancing in her eyes that made my stomach twist. Slowly, I stepped toward the door. Every part of me screamed not to open it, but my body moved anyway, as if something beyond my control was pulling the strings. I turned the handle. The door swung open, and there she was, my mother. I froze. She stood in the dimly lit hallway, poised as ever, dressed in one of her expensive silk gowns. Her expression was unreadable, But her eyes, God, her eyes, held something I had never seen before. A quiet, knowing calculation. Mother! My voice was hoarse. She stepped forward, her gaze flickering briefly to Elaine before settling on me. You look like you've seen a ghost, she murmured. My stomach churned. What are you doing here? She sighed, as if disappointed by my question. Oh, Nathan. She reached up, brushing a stray strand of hair from my forehead in a gesture that should have been comforting, but wasn't. Haven't you figured it out yet? My mouth was dry. I looked at Elaine, but she only smiled. This wasn't right. None of this was right. My mother's hand dropped to her side. You were never meant to stand on the sidelines, darling. Her lips curved slightly, but there was no warmth in it. You were meant to be part of this. Dread coiled in my gut. This what? I whispered. She studied me for a long moment before exhaling, almost in pity. Then, with slow, deliberate steps, she moved past me, past Elaine, into the room. My breath caught. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't angry. She already knew. She had always known. And that was when I realized this wasn't Elaine's game at all. The room was silent. My mother moved gracefully, each step slow and deliberate, as if she owned the space. And in a way, she did. Because this wasn't my battle to fight. This wasn't even my game to understand. It was hers. Elaine leaned casually against the bedpost, watching with quiet amusement. She wasn't worried. She wasn't afraid. Because she knew. They both did. My chest tightened. How long? My voice came out hoarse, barely above a whisper. My mother turned, her expression unreadable. How long what? Darling. I swallowed, my throat dry. How long have you known? Her lips curled slightly, but there was no warmth behind it. Since the beginning. Elaine let out a soft hum of approval, tilting her head. Smart woman. I ignored her. My heart pounded. You're lying. Mother sighed, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. Nathan, she murmured, stepping closer. Do you truly think something like this could happen under my roof without my knowledge? I clenched my fists. Then why didn't you stop it? She smiled. It was slow, controlled, terrifying. Because I didn't want to. The floor beneath me might as well have vanished. I shook my head. No, that's not. Not what? She interrupted, raising a delicate brow. Not something a mother should do. Not something you expected from me. She took another step, closing the distance. Oh, Nathan, you're still so naive. Elaine laughed softly. He really is. Isn't he? I shot her a glare, but she only smirked, completely unfazed. My mind raced. None of this made sense. Or maybe it did, and I had simply refused to see it. I had spent so long trying to resist Elaine, try to convince myself that I was the one being corrupted, that I hadn't stopped to consider the real question. Who was pulling the strings? My mother sighed, as if disappointed by my slow realization. You always wanted to be like your father, she mused. And now, you finally understand what that means. My stomach twisted. This wasn't about Elaine. This was about power, control, manipulation. My father had thought he was the one taking what he wanted, that he was the one with the upper hand. But the truth was, he had never been the one in control. Elaine moved then, pushing off the bedpost with slow, feline grace. You see, Nathan, she murmured, stepping toward me. There's something you need to understand about your mother and me. My breath hitched as she reached out, her fingers brushing along my jaw. We don't lose. I jerked away from her touch, my pulse a violent drum in my ears. You used me, I breathed. Elaine only smiled. Oh, darling, don't act so wounded. I turned back to my mother, my chest rising and falling rapidly. Why? She tilted her head, studying me like a puzzle she had already solved. Because he thought he could have everything. I knew she meant my father, the man who had built this house, this empire, the man who had always believed himself untouchable. Elaine smirked. And now, my mother's expression didn't change. Now, he learns that he never had anything at all. My blood ran cold. Elaine reached for the silk robe draped across the chair and slipped it on, tying it loosely at her waist. You should be thanking us, Nathan. I let out a bitter laugh. For what? She leaned in, her lips grazing my ear. For making you part of something bigger than yourself. I forced myself to meet my mother's gaze. And if I walk away? She held my stare for a long moment. Then, without blinking, she answered, "You won't."